There's a short list of moments in NFL history that I remember exactly where I was when they happened, even years after the fact. Andrew Luck's retirement in the middle of eating pizza with my wife last Saturday night, I think, is gonna be one of them. But it wasn't the first time that Luck left such an unforgettable impression on me. Hell, on the list of all-time shocking moments in his career, that's still probably only number 2. Because on January 4th, 2014, nearly 6 years ago now, I witnessed Luck do the impossible. Down by 28 points with less than 2 quarters to play against a very good Chiefs team in the playoffs, Luck not only came back to win that game, but in doing so, he did something that I never thought would happen so early in his career. He filled Peyton Manning's shoes. It was a Herculean performance for the ages, full of ups and downs and more downs and just a little bit of help from the football gods. But when the clock hit 0, I couldn't help but feel like I just watched the pinnacle of what this sport could be. It was a feeling almost like it was all downhill from there, and in a way it kind of was for Luck at least. So every now and then I go back to that game to relive it, just so that I can appreciate not just that it happened, but also to marvel at how it happened. Here's a quick refresher on the events leading up to that 38-10 deficit that became so iconic, because believe me, this game was jam-packed with huge moments. The first 3 drives of the day all resulted in scores, with each team opening up with touchdowns and the Chiefs tacking on a field goal as well. Following that, the Colts fell off that pace by going 3 and out, and from that punt on, it kind of all went off the rails. Alex Smith immediately made them pay for that stalled drive by finding Donnie Avery for a 79-yard touchdown to make it a 10-point game, and then the Chiefs got the ball back yet again 1 snap later because Trent Richardson fumbled the ball on his very first carry. 3 plays later, Smith threw a crazy improvisational shovel pass to Anthony Sherman on an angle route, and just like that, the Chiefs extended their lead to 24-7 in just barely over 1 quarter of play. Indy did respond to that with a field goal to cut the deficit back down to 2 possessions, but all that did was just put a dent in the problem because the Chiefs came right back down the field again with a 7-minute, 16-play drive that was capped off by another Nile Davis touchdown. With 2 minutes left in the half, it was now 31-10, and Andrew Luck was going to have to throw all of his caution to the wind just to get back into this thing. And on that ensuing caution-free drive, that's when this happened. A Brandon Flowers interception that ended up being one of the most critical plays of the game, even if it didn't seem like it at first. Yes, obviously any turnover in a playoff game is huge, but the way that this turnover happened set the stage for everything that came after it, including the Colts' amazing comeback. It was 2nd and 17 at midfield with 30 seconds left and 1 timeout still left for Indy in the half, and at this point, situationally, Luck is expecting the Chiefs to fully commit to stopping any throws to the sidelines, because above all, the Colts are just trying to preserve clock while they get into field goal range. So when he's got T.Y. Hilton running a seam route from an outside release against cover 4, which is a route that again releases to outside leverage and then bends back inside to the soft spot between the safety and Flowers, Luck was expecting Flowers to continue buzzing to the outside to play anything on the boundary. He was not expecting Flowers to bump Hilton during the release and then fall back to the inside to undercut that seam and pick it off, but he did. And this is crucial because it told the Colts a lot about how the Chiefs play cover 4 in that system under Bob Sutton, who was the defensive coordinator at the time. In Casey's cover 4 back then, the Chiefs' nickel defender in the slot, whoever that may have been, had no interest in what's going on outside of his landmark. He's playing his hook zone and only his hook zone, regardless of the situation, and he's not going to do anything but take away those inside throws until the ball is already out. If you throw outside of him to the boundary, that's fine. He and the safety and the boundary corner will rally and tackle and pin the receiver to the sideline to limit the damage, but as God is his witness, you will not throw inside of him on those seam routes. Even on the interception that Luck threw on his very next drive, which was nowhere near Flowers at all, you can see him and the safety working together in the exact same way. Bump the release so that Hilton struggles to get up to speed early, fall back inside to take away the seam, and trust the safety to drive on the route from over the top no matter where it goes or what direction it breaks. Above all else, this coverage protects the middle of the field, and it forces much harder throws out towards the boundaries. But at this point in the game, after all the turnovers and all the points that Kansas City got off of those turnovers, these 2 picks are what started the swing back towards Luck and Hilton's favor. They got together on the bench and figured out how the Chiefs were going to double TY. They saw that no matter what the situation was, they were going to double him the exact same way every time they ran cover 4 or cover 2, which was most of the time. And once they figured that out, it was over. They cracked the formula, and unfortunately for the Chiefs, Luck and Hilton still had plenty of time to make them pay for it. On the very next drive, just 2 plays after that interception, look at how Andrew and TY adjusted to this bracket coverage. KC is showing cover 4 again, Flowers and Kendrick Lewis are double teaming him all the way and not worrying about anyone else again, and watch how they both predictably collapse inside the second Hilton looks like he's bending that seam towards the hashes. Flowers is jumping it all the way, except this time, Hilton didn't bend the route inside. He snapped the route off quickly and stayed outside, where Luck found him wide open for an easy first down. Double coverage or not, now the Colts were in business. 2 plays after that, it's the same thing. The Chiefs are showing press quarters this time, which means it's cover 4 except one or both of the boundary corners is playing essentially bump and run instead of a true bail zone technique, but in terms of assignment, it's still basically just cover 4. And once again, we see the mind games pay off for the Colts, with Flowers bumping the release, turning back in, and then sitting down outside to stop Hilton's previous adjustment that we just saw, while Lewis drove on Hilton again from over the top. The thing with this quarter's look, though, is that since Luck knew it was coming, and he knew that Kendrick Lewis would under no circumstances be paying attention to anything other than T.Y. Hilton on this play, he knew that there would be a hell of a lot of wide open grass in the deep middle of the field for him to find Derrick Rodgers on a deep post against an outside leverage defender. All he had to do was just slide in the pocket to survive the Chiefs' front 7 while that route developed, and he would be able to take his shot, and take his shot he did. This was an impeccable ball with great pocket movement and an even better catch by Rodgers, but the key to it all was Kansas City tipping their hands earlier in the game for how they were going to keep TY in check with cover 4 and how their game plan could be exploited. Luck may still have been a young quarterback here in just his second season, but he wasn't your average young quarterback. If you showed him the same look too many times, he would absolutely shred you, and I think this was the game that put the league on notice to that fact. One play after that deep ball to Rodgers, Donald Brown waltzed his way into the end zone, cutting the deficit back down to a semi-manageable 21 points with still nearly 2 full quarters to play, and then on the ensuing Chiefs drive, Robert Mathis hunted down Alex Smith from behind and forced a fumble, which led to this play on 1st and 10 from the KC 41-yard line. Keep in mind that in the box score, this is an incompletion and a penalty for an illegal formation on Anthony Costanzo, so technically there's nothing really special about this play at all from a stats perspective anyway, but we still need to pay attention to it because it sets up something huge later in the game. Again, the Chiefs are in that cover 4 look with Flowers falling off inside to protect the seam and Lewis playing it over the top from inside leverage, but take a closer look at this route. This is a nod go from the slot, where Hilton is bending slightly inside like he's hitting that seam route again, but then he puts his right foot in the ground and accelerates down the field outside the numbers where he's got a one-on-one opportunity against Lewis, which is a massive speed mismatch. Obviously, Luck didn't connect with him, and Lewis did a good job of reading that this was coming and staying with it, but file that play away in the back of your head and how quickly Lewis was to bite on that outside move, because you can be damn sure that Luck and Hilton filed it away during the game themselves. 5 plays after that incompletion, the Colts were able to make good on that Mathis sack fumble and punch it in with a screen to Donald Brown, and at this point the comeback was officially on. It was now only a 14-point game with a quarter and a half still to play, which for any fans of teams that have ever had to play against Andrew Luck, you know that a lead like that is virtually meaningless with that much time on the clock. 2 Colts drives later, following another Chiefs field goal that made it 41-24, Luck was able to pull off a few magician-worthy plays to work Indy back inside the Kansas City 15-yard line. There's 2:34 on the clock in the third quarter, 2nd and 10 in the red zone, and Luck sees that same quarter zone look yet again that he's been feasting on ever since Bob Sutton tipped his hand. The Colts are in gun tray left, and they're running what's called a divide concept here. And while divide routes aren't exactly an ideal way to attack quarters coverage, especially in a tight area of the field where there's not a lot of space to work with, because Luck knew exactly how the Chiefs would be playing these quarter zones, especially with Hilton still tucked away in that slot, he knew he had KC dead to rights anyway. Technically, Kobe Fleener, who is the number 3 receiver inside in this formation, is the responsibility of Eric Berry in any cover 4 zone look, but just based on alignment, Barry is always going to be more shaded towards the opposite hashes rather than truly lining up in the middle of the field. So even though Kendrick Lewis doesn't explicitly have Fleener as his man, he is technically the closest defender in the area if Fleener just runs straight up the field to split these zones. Luck knew that Lewis, close proximity or not however, would never even look at Fleener or at Luck's eyes on this play because he hadn't done that once all game long, so he was pretty confident in this throw. All Fleener had to do was just run in a straight line up the field after giving a little shake to the linebacker, completely ignore Lewis behind him, and Luck would find a way to get him the ball, which of course he did. It was now a 10-point game with a little over a quarter to go, and by this point everyone in the stadium knew what was happening, even the Chiefs. They all felt that this young quarterback, in his second playoff appearance ever, was taking over the game, and there was nothing anybody could do to stop him. People may point to that famous fumble recovery, crazy-ass rushing touchdown on Indy's very next possession as the moment that best represented this game, and by extension represented Andrew Luck himself, but to me, the play of Luck's entire career was the game-winning touchdown bomb to T.Y. Hilton one drive after that. It rolled everything that made Luck into one throw, and the fact that the ball went to his best friend and his most trusted weapon throughout his career just made it all the sweeter. In fact, when you look at the mic'd up for this game, Andrew even looked at Hilton in the huddle before the snap and said, and I quote, "Ty, run your whole f***ing ass off on this play." And he did. He ran Kendrick Lewis right out of the damn stadium on a deep post that had been building up for the entire game. Watch how this route developed, and again, while you watch it, please keep that previous deep incompletion that we highlighted earlier in the back of your mind. It's cover 4, again, because Bob Sutton never learns. Hilton is bumped in the release and passed off by the slot defender once again, and just like earlier in the game, he's now running full gas straight at Lewis down the field. Lewis is expecting another nod go outside the numbers like he saw earlier, and he's already flipped his hips outside in anticipation of that. But Hilton's not running a nod go. He's running a post for the first time all day and letting Lewis dig his own grave one bad step at a time. At the last second, once he's eaten up all that grass and gotten Lewis to fully turn himself around, he stems the route inside and it's over. Luck throws a beautiful ball on a rope, 50 yards through the air, touchdown, Colts lead, and we all know what happened from there. This was one of the greatest comebacks and one of the greatest games period in NFL history, and I will always remember where I was, in that NFL Network break room, eating a ton of pizza and screaming my ass off with 15 other people who couldn't believe what we were witnessing. It's honestly one of my most cherished football memories that doesn't involve my Houston Texans, and I gotta say, this early retirement from Andrew Luck hurts a lot. Every football fan, no matter their favorite team, all lost something this week. We lost an icon in the making, one of the truly great talents this game will ever see. But more importantly, we lost one of the few men capable of making that moment and that memory happen. We'll never get to see Luck do that again. We'll never get to down an extra large pepperoni and sausage with our buddies and watch that neck-bearded demon pull off the impossible. It's a total shock to the system, and in a way, that feeling of being robbed of seeing something special will probably never go away. Again, I know I'm not a Colts fan, but as a fan of the game, I want to make sure that Andrew is celebrated and not ridiculed for his decision, because he and his legacy don't deserve that. If you think this hurts all of us, and it does, imagine how much it hurts him. I can think of few worse pains than the loss of a life's passion, and that's what Andrew Luck is mourning right now. His lost passion for what used to be his life. I don't know if he'll ever get it back, or if he'll ever return, but no matter what he decides, make sure from time to time you remember the game that turned him from a great story into a legend. Remember the mark that he left on this league, and remember where you were when you saw him become not just the guy that came after Peyton Manning, but the guy that measured up to Peyton Manning. That comeback was a once-in-a-lifetime moment, orchestrated by a once-in-a-lifetime player. And even if I never get to see that player again, what makes me happy is that at the very least, for the rest of my lifetime, I'll remember that break room. I'll remember the smell of that pizza and the strain in my vocal cords. And most of all, I'll remember the greatness of Andrew Luck. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode, and thank you once again to our returning sponsor for the entire 2019 season. A lot of you know them very well already, MyBookie. They're one of the biggest online sports books out there, and I've played on them exclusively for 2 years now, and they've been great for both me and a lot of the people that watch this show every single week. If you've been thinking about placing some bets on any of the Week 1 games, and there's an awesome slate for Week 1 by the way, or maybe if you're a depressed Colts fan and you want to throw a cheap lottery ticket bet out on Jacoby Brissett to lead Indy to a Super Bowl, MyBookie is giving all Film Room viewers that use promo code Brett a 100% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. That means as you bet with your initial deposit, MyBookie will double that deposit as you go, essentially giving you a bunch of free bets to work with. So let's say you deposit $25 to start, you throw down some $5 bets on a few games that you like the odds for on Week 1 just to dip your toe in the water. You'll get that doubled deposit to use on whatever other bets you like for free, and if they win, you'll get all of those winnings as if it were a real bet with your own money. And by the way, the Colts are 40-1 odds to win the Super Bowl now, so that free $25 bet would pay out, by my math, $1,000 for free. That's a pretty good deal for a flyer bet if you're planning on placing some wagers on these Week 1 games anyway, just saying. So if you wanted to bet on a few games this season to make your Sundays a little bit more interesting, click on the link in the description below, enter promo code Brett, and get started. As for me, I'll be back next week with a whole lot of new videos, a cool film room on Xavier Rhodes versus Julio Jones over the years, some 2019 season predictions, and some Week 1 predictions as well. So it's a very busy week for me, but it's Week 1 of the season, which is one of my favorite weeks all year, so I'm super stoked. I'll see you guys back next week, and yeah, until then, later.